All right, we are live. Hey guys, Sam Mays here from Sellout Crowd. My show is called In the Trenches with Sam Mays. I'm thrilled to be a part of such a cool organizations. We've got great contributors like Barry Trammell, Jenny Carlson. We're talking Bob Stoops is a part of what we've got going on. We had a group out there in Colorado for Colorado USC today. Like, this is pretty awesome. Like, I'm pretty pumped to be a part of Sellout Crowd. So thank you guys so much for following me over here. And I'm happy to be creating content again. Real quick tonight, this is just kind of about Iowa State and Oklahoma. We'll start off some Texas hate week chat in this thing also. So feel free to comment and ask questions. I'd love to hear you guys' opinion and see what you guys have got, what your thoughts are, just how this team is doing so far this season. I'll be honest, just to give you like a quick overview of how I feel about Oklahoma football at this point. I think that this team is better than I anticipated by a mile, right? I honestly didn't see Venables and staff doing what they've done with this group defensively this season. A lot of it was because I wasn't quite sure about the personnel. Also, I feel like the Alex Grinch speed defense did more to Oklahoma than people want to acknowledge, right? I feel like this is a team that was damaged by that quote unquote scheme. I mean, you could do Alex Grinch's defense on a whiteboard with Crayola crayon, right? That wasn't a defensive scheme in comparison to what Brent Venables is bringing to the table with the complexity of his defense. So to see this unit take the field with competence, with poise, fly around the football, they know what they're doing and they're making big plays. I feel like this defense is headed to a place this season that they haven't been since 05, 06. I mean, I think they're going to be pretty darn good. I think the one thing that we also got to acknowledge here, and I struggle with this, right? I'm 41 years old. I played college football 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we had 3-a-days, right? 20 years ago, we had 2-a-days. I guarantee you, by the time I played game number one, I probably had 300 to 500 more live snaps than a lot of these kids have coming into the season. So these first few games, I think, look a little less polished to me than maybe they should because of just the lack of physicality in practice, right? The lack of live snaps in practice. They're not doing it like they did 20 years ago. And God bless them. You know, my head is, I've got my short-term memory is not great, and I've had a bunch of concussions, and the CTE conversation in my house is very, very real. And so I'm here for all advancements of football and the way that they prepare, keeping kids healthy. But there are some, things that are negative about that also. And I think a lot of it is just slower starts to season, especially with the offensive and defensive lines and what we typically are used to, 20 years ago. I would say that Venables is at his best calling the defense, period. I know this is not a popular thing. I know a lot of people feel like head coaches should be head coaches. They shouldn't be as involved as coordinators, but that dude knows what he's doing. I thought the defense that he called tonight was fantastic. If it wasn't for two boneheaded mistakes with a couple of kids that are just being overly aggressive, right? The score of this game is 50-6. But once that first interception happens, it's a lot like drops, right? So like when a receiver drops the ball, sometimes that can be contagious. When somebody gets an interception and people feel like the ball's up for grabs in a game like this, it kind of sometimes guys lean in a little bit more than maybe they should. And I think you saw some guys take some chances in the secondary to maybe get an interception and it failed, right? So now you have two long touchdown passes for Iowa State. But the score of this game should have been 50-6. I thought they were just dominant defensively. And a lot of it is just the way that it's being called. And then having a guy like Stutzman in the middle who I think from an academic standpoint might be one of the best linebackers in the country as far as his overall knowledge of the defense. Physically, sometimes like you love the speed for sure, but there's sometimes he can get manhandled a little bit by some of the bigger guys on the field, which is understandable because he's not a big bruising linebacker by any means. But I think that kid is special and headed to some All-American honors potentially this year. So defensively, thumbs up in my opinion for Oklahoma. Offensively, it was good for me to see Dylan Gabriel bounce back. And I put this on Twitter earlier today, and people were like, bounce back? When did he have a bad performance? And I think it's probably just the way that I think of Gabriel so far this season. In my opinion, he should be in a Heisman Trophy conversation with some of the numbers that he's put up so far this year. I mean, you're talking, the kid at Colorado, Sanders' son, and old boy out there in USC, Caleb Williams, that we don't like to talk a whole lot about here in Oklahoma. I mean, those two guys he's on par with them, right? He's on that same level as far as his stats and the way he's played the game so far this season. So last week I was a little disappointed to see him look a little less than stellar, right? He missed some big deep balls. He missed over the middle, I think, once or twice. This is a game today that was complete domination by Dylan Gabriel through the air, on the ground, deep bombs, mid-range, short range. He threw every ball he wanted to throw. I think there was one that was pretty poorly underthrown that was still a completion for Oklahoma. But if we're going to nitpick, I think that was maybe the only ball that I was like super disappointed with. And obviously the interception, you never want to see one of those. And I guarantee you he regretted that as soon as it left his hand. I thought Gabriel looked good. It looks like he is a good enough quarterback to win games for his football team. I would have told you a year ago that he was a guy that wasn't going to lose. So big step. I think he's the most improved player on the team. Is Dylan Gabriel. So it was good to see him play well. I mentioned Venables being on point today. I thought Levy had a great call also. I thought he was, exceptional in the way that he managed this game. You're talking, they averaged only 3.8 yards through the run game, but they ran it 41 times. People got to understand something, and I know it's difficult because what we've watched out of Oklahoma for the last 15 years has just been offenses that are just absurd. You're talking, Heisman Trophy quarterbacks and 500 yards and 600 yards. And I'm pretty sure there was a 1,000-yard game in there somewhere against Texas Tech that I covered years ago. Just ignorant offenses from Oklahoma for a very long time. But what was suffering was the defense. And I think what we're seeing here with Levy and Venables, this connection here is, Jeff, I think, is fully aware that Oklahoma's defense is probably the best unit right now, and he's going to cater to those guys. So when he's running the ball 41 times, they got 157 yards on the ground, a couple of touchdowns. That's more about playing, having that symbiotic relationship with your defense. That's total team play there. Like, you're going to cater to that defense, keep them off the field, allow them to rest, play a certain type of tempo that caters to your defense and their ability to play fast for 4 quarters of football. Think about, as much as I think Alex Gritch is an idiot, and I can't for the life of me understand how he's still coaching in Division I big time college football. Like, that's a real Mount Union defense that he runs. Like, that's D2, D3 stuff. It doesn't work on this level. And you saw it again today against Colorado. Like, he's just not good. Lincoln Riley just sold him out, right? Over and over and over again. Riley is not worried about his defense. He's not worried about their needs. He's not worried about their condition, any of those things. I mean, you saw that several times at OU over the years that he just didn't care necessarily how the defense was faring. It was just go score as fast as we can, as often as we can. And look, they won a bunch of games doing it, right? Played a bunch of semifinal games, but never had a defense that was going to allow them to win. I think this combination, like, you take this defense this year and you put it on that 2017 OU team, and I think they absolutely win a national title. I don't think it's even close. I think this defense very, very capable of taking an elite level offense to that final game and giving themselves an opportunity to win a title. So now offensively, are they that good, Norman? I don't know yet. I think I'm surprised with how good those receivers are. I think a bunch of new faces out there that are doing big things. I think that running back room is packed. It was good to see Marcus Majors run hard today. It comes down to the offensive line, who I think had probably their best game this week, which is huge, which is exactly what you're looking for going into OU Texas week. So it's good to see those guys get out there and compete at a high level for sure. And I keep trying to remind people that you go back to that Joe Moore award that Cody Ford and Bobby Evans and that group won, Creed Humphreys. They didn't get good until Texas that year, right? I mean, it was week 5 before that offensive line really had a dominant performance. So I think this group, with the performance that they had today, it's probably even a little ahead of schedule. Now, look, Iowa State sucks. I know that. This is the second week in a row that I've watched them play, and that's not a good football team by any means. But it was good to see Oklahoma control the line of scrimmage. It was good to see perfect pockets. Gabriel had a lifetime to throw the football today, which was exciting. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with the way that group got out there and competed. And if I had to guess, Beatonbow also pretty high on the way that his offensive line competed going into Texas. So those are my quick thoughts, and I will answer some of you guys' questions. Ryan, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm happy to be back in the media also. I agree with you, Bruce. OU definitely has the attitude of their coach. You can just tell that Venables is just kind of that tough, hard-nosed guy. That defense very much looks like him when they're on the football field, and I feel like that offensive line and the physicality that they play with also very much mirroring their head coach and their offensive line coach. Beatonbow is tough as nails. So I would agree that they're coming together. You can really see this team gelling nicely across the board, which is awesome for Oklahoma. It has been so long since we could talk about a total team victory, right? We can talk about the football team as a whole. I remember going to the semifinal games under Riley and literally not mentioning the defense for a month, doing a month of radio, not talking about the defense at all. This is a much better situation in Norman with Venables and what they've been able to accomplish so far this season. Yeah, Dylan Gabriel is not getting enough credit, Daniel. I agree 100%. Matt Campbell's seat is hot. I don't know about that. Matt Campbell gives me Gundy vibes, and Lord knows it's going to take an act of Congress to get Gundy out of Oklahoma State. I agree 100% with Carson Carpenter. We're in a better spot going into the SEC with Brent than we were with Riley. It's not even close. Brent, I think, had to come in and refocus the team. I think there's some fundamental pillars of this football team that were a little cracked, right? And now we're talking about faith and family and football, and the soul mission guys are doing a great job. I think this team as a whole is just more focused on doing the right things each and every day. That's from class, from relationships in life, to obviously on the football field, and it just feels stable, right? It feels right in Norman, like they're in the right path. So give him a lot of credit for what he's done there. My unpopular opinion. Here's my unpopular opinion. Dylan Gabriel is just an average quarterback. You know what? I would have said yes to that a year ago. That would have been my perception of Dylan Gabriel. I would have told you that I thought he was just a player, just a guy, especially in comparison to Baker, and then the three quarterbacks prior to Dylan, or 4 and 5 actually. You go from Caleb to Spencer to oh God, who was next? Jalen Hurts, and then it was Kyler Murray, and then it was Baker Mayfield, and here's Dylan Gabriel. And it's like you're not what those guys are. And I think the reality is he is. I don't think he'll ever be any of those dudes, but I'm having a hard time calling him average this season. I think he is. There's a zip on his ball. I think he's commanding the offense. He's very comfortable running the football, and it's not just running for his life. I mean, he's running with intent. Which is good to see. I think he's a total package. I think he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I'm not going to call him average this year. I think he's put in the work. And to talk about that real quick, this just happened in Norman a couple of years ago, right? You bring in a star freshman quarterback in Caleb Williams. Well, Spencer Rattler broke, right? Spencer Rattler broke in the spring and was never the same player because Caleb was behind him. I think if you look what's happened here, you bring in the kid from Denton, who's named Jackson Arnold, and Gabriel has taken all the necessary steps to get better. Gabriel has been exceptional. He was great in the spring. He's great in the summer. He's taken the reins of this team. He's leading better than he did a year ago. He's answering the call, because let me tell you something, that Arnold boy, yeah, he's going to be the real deal. I feel pretty comfortable in the kind of player that he is, watching him execute already. So the fact that Dylan kept him at bay, because I'll be honest with you, y'all, let's talk about it. If Arnold comes in and looking the way that he's looked so far, the little bit that we've seen, tell me you wouldn't think, well, let me go ahead and get this kid's freshman year out in the Big 12. because that's what I would have done 100%. Like if it was close and he was pushing Gabriel to the point of making that decision, hell yes. I'm going to let that kid play a Big 12 schedule, whether we win 8 games or 9 games, whatever that might be. I'm going to let him get this rookie year out in this conference versus throw him to the Wolves next season. But I think Gabriel kept him on the bench, which is a huge statement for Dylan. So I think he's really came up in a big way. John says we haven't seen a lot of Devontae Barnes this year, who we perceive to be the running back one going to the season. Are they possibly saving him for Texas to not show everything our offense can do with him? Man, you know what? The running back situation has been weird, right? Like they have really weird combinations, and some guys play this week and some guys don't play the next week, and it's just kind of bouncing all over the place. I'll say this: I think they got 4 very capable backs, and when you have an offensive line that is performing like that group did tonight, it doesn't necessarily matter who the guy is. I thought Majors ran with passion, with a forward lean tonight, which was exciting to see. He's a tough kid. Always good to see an Oklahoma boy have some success. I don't necessarily know that any of those backs wouldn't be the right answer for Oklahoma. So it's always good to have talent, good to have depth. Bryce Wayne, I know Bob is filled with pride watching Drake make his mark. Man, I think this is probably one of the most underrated stories in college football is watching Coach Stoops watch Drake, right? Like as a real proud dad wearing a jersey, being a fan, hooping and hollering, having a beer with his buddies, and just watching his son compete. Like what a blessing that is for him and their family, right? To go back to Cincinnati and have all those folks drive down I-70 from Youngstown and to sit in the stands and watch that kid get out there and play like a Stoops. You know, that family is notorious in North Eastern Ohio. The way that Bob Stoops played football, his brothers played football. You know, the Stoops family is a household name where I'm from, and I think Drake very much embodies that name. Right, he respects his last name, plays that way. Physical, great blocker, great run, a route runner, all the things that you would expect out of a coach's son. Drake does, and I just love that Coach Stoops gets the opportunity to watch him compete. It's exciting for sure. I love that storyline. Hmm. What else we got? Oregon State beat Utah. How about DJ Uyunglele? What a comeback for him. Looking the part. This is a kid that was at Clemson as a freshman, just really couldn't find a way to get it done, and showed up in a big way. And he's been pretty impressive with Oregon State for sure. I am an Ohio boy. Yeah, Northeastern Ohio. That's one of the things I appreciated most about Les Miles is he let me play like a Youngstown boy. You know, that was something that I took a lot of pride in. I played with the grandsons of steel workers. We're just tough people. My offense in high school was a stack eye. Right, we had one receiver, double tights, up back, fullback, tailback. My senior year, my junior year, Maurice Claret was our starting running back as a freshman. He was a monster. Like we just played powerful, physical football up north and up in Northeastern Ohio. We're proud of it for sure. How about the Baylor UCF game? Thanks, Bryce. Was one of the craziest finishes I've ever seen. Big ups to Baylor for staying with it, right? They're struggling this year, injuries, and not the season they were hoping to have, obviously, but they found a way to fight. And I'm also pretty excited about UCF. I think they might have I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know what year it was, 2009 that West Virginia came in the Big 12. Is that right? Geno Smith and all that group. If you remember, they took the conference by storm, right? I want to say they won 6 straight or something crazy. Everybody's super pumped. They're ranked in the top 10. Well, then what happened next? Well, what happened is the conference got a grip on them, right? And all of a sudden, they realized that the conference they had been playing in didn't do the damage that this one does on your personnel throughout the season. And I thought that West Virginia just got tired at the end of the day. They're running a different race. So I think early, the UCFs and the Houstons, the BYUs, Cincinnati's, like you're going to see them have some early success. I think as the season goes along, that's when you'll start to notice they just don't have the depth of a lot of these Big 12 teams. And they'll start taking hits. But you got to like the package that they showed up with, right? I think all those teams have looked apart at times this year, and the Big 12 looks like it's survived conference realignment again, which is exciting. So I'm pretty pumped about the newcomers to the league and the way they're representing so far. Man, I didn't get to watch any of that LSU Ole Miss game. I'm so butthurt about Oklahoma State starting quarterback sitting on the bench down there. That anytime Ole Miss plays, I just turn off the TV. So there's that. All right, here you go. OU Texas. Give me some OU Texas questions. Sheldon says, how do you think the matchups of OU's O-line versus Texas D-line go? Heard the actual matchups were not as bad as you would think. I think that Texas' defensive line brings a lot of speed to the table. I'm not necessarily sure. The Texas teams that I played against, I take a lot of pride of being someone who played against OU and Texas in the early 2000s because those defenses took the field with like 9 NFL players starting at any given time, right? And so when I look at Texas today, they look a little different to me than what I was used to as a player, considering Jonathan Crowder was like 6'8", 260-pound freshman playing defensive end. And then they had, Casey Hampton and Marcus Tubbs, just these massive dudes that run Texas. They're a little more built for speed, I would tell you this year. Speed sometimes could be a problem for an offensive line that's not hitting in all cylinders. I would tell you that Oklahoma's offensive line looked about as cohesive tonight as they have in a couple of years, so which is a good sign going in this game. Speed makes you doubt, right? As an offensive lineman, you get set in your stance and the guy across from you is significantly quicker or faster. You have to really rely on your technique more than anything to diffuse him. But every once in a while, that speed can kind of creep in your head. And next thing you know, you're changing your stance, or you're trying to cheat a little bit, here or there. And it's the last thing you need to do. So I feel like this is the game against Iowa State they needed to have to be their best against Texas. I would be concerned. I'm most concerned probably on the edges, and I feel like the tackles have been pretty good for Oklahoma so far this year. So not too bad. I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. Yeah, Sexton having a big game would be huge. No question about it. How cool is it to see that young man get in there competing? He looks the part. How good are the corners for Oklahoma versus the Texas receivers? I think that Oklahoma's got a bunch of good receivers. And so when you take, that whole iron sharpens iron narrative, I think you've got some of that going on with Oklahoma. I think the Worthy kid is special. I think Oklahoma's got some guys that are pretty special also. Worthy might not have the speed that Worthy does, but a bunch of talented pass catchers. I don't think that Oklahoma's going to be overwhelmed by Texas's athleticism by any means. The question by Eric here, do you think Texas receivers have the edge against RDBs? Longhorns have some tall receivers. Yeah, height. I mean, you can't teach size, right? Size matters. There's no doubt about that. But I would tell you that Venables has been so good about the way that he's approached these games, the schemes, the blitz packages. He is so aware of his defenses. I don't want to say. I mean, there's just some things that the defense doesn't do well, right? Like they don't have an individual on that defensive line that I would say is just a real gold-nutted stud, right? You'll hear me say that a lot. My offensive line coach, Chuck Mueller, said it to us when I was a kid, and it just stuck with me. That gold-nutted stud, that guy that he defies, the wrapping. He's just so good by himself. He, draws attention in meetings, and you're trying to scheme him out. Just that one defensive lineman that really can put pressure on an opposing offense. Oklahoma doesn't have that. They've got a bunch of good dudes that are out there working hard, and they're sure tacklers, and they're playing fundamentally sound defense, which is saying way more than you could 5 years ago. Like that's happening for sure, but there's just not that guy that is just wreaking havoc as an individual. And so what you're seeing is Venables come up with some pretty clever blitz packages that are you'll see more of those obviously this weekend against Texas that will hopefully keep that Texas offensive coordinator off his game a little bit. That's what they're going to look to do. Venables is, if I was an OC, that's the last dude I want to be up coaching against. because he knows what he's doing, right? And like I said, he knows the limitations of the defense that he's coaching, and he's going to do his best to put them in the right position. So I'm excited to see that matchup for sure. What else we got? Bryce Wayne. I wish the Jayhawks had their QB today. So do I. Kansas is a great story, man. They've come up in a big way for sure. Ryan Sturdy, what do you think about PJ, the D line for OU, on the D line for OU? Josh Hall. Yeah, Ryan PJ, give me the whole name, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm concussed. Um, Josh Hall, Sawchuck blew pass protection twice, which might be the problem. Yeah, look, that'll get you benched. Miss assignments are it's not even an option at this point in the season. Perfection as far as your academic knowledge of the offense or defense is what should be the demand at any football program. And I think that you miss protection and you won't play. Bottom line, there's too many good backs in that deal to throw him in the game if you're missing protections. This year's Red River Shootout will be much different game than last year. I think this year's Red River Shootout is going to be probably one of the best games of the season. Honestly, I think it's the last Big 12 matchup. Who knows what this game looks like here in 5 years, if it's going to have to move venues or whatever. So, like, I'm kind of taking it all in as an opportunity to watch excellence happen again. This game for me, yeah, we're already 27 minutes into this thing. I'll say this and we'll get out of this. OU Texas week to me, what it means to me personally, right? It's special because 20 years ago, Sam Mays is at Oklahoma State. We're trying to pull ourselves up by our boots and bootstraps and, find a way to make an impact in a conference that was the undisputed king of college football. The Big 12 was dominant across the board. We put more players in the NFL than anybody else. Great quarterback play, great running back play. The list of guys that came to the NFL from 2000 to 2004 is unbelievable, right? I was proud to sit back on a Saturday in October and watch Oklahoma and Texas take the field and essentially decide who was going to play for a national championship, right? I was proud to take the field against those teams, to play against the best of the best of the best, period. And so it sucked for me personally over the last 10 years watching teams take the field in this game that weren't carrying the same flag that some of the teams that had graced the field earlier in their predecessors, right? Like, they just weren't the same. These from 2000 to over the last 10 years. I mean, they've been some good football teams and good football players, but it wasn't that just brutal, physical, disgusting. Like watching Teddy Lehman play in this game or Dan Cody play in this game. It's like those dudes they're going to commit a crime, right? Like they took the field to commit a crime in this game. I'm pretty pumped to get to talk to Tommy Harris next week on this In the Trenches podcast, and I'm going to talk to him on Monday. Hopefully, get that out to you guys ASAP just to get his thoughts in it. Like Tommy Harris was bigger than life in this game. Like they lived for it, they breathed it. Talking to Wes Sims, one of my dear friends, about this game, like the way that OU former Sooners talk about this game, it just was everything to them. So I'm excited about this week. I think this is going to be an awesome Big 12 finale for OU Texas. I appreciate you guys. I really didn't think anybody was going to join in. So to get almost 70 of you is pretty cool. I think I'm going to try to do this quite a bit. We got this awesome setup here in the house now, and shout out the Sellout Crowd and Chris Murray and his staff. Those guys are incredible, and I'm happy to be a part of what we've got going on, and looking forward to continue to bring you guys content throughout the year. So stay tuned, and like I said, I'm going to hop on. This was real easy. Like I was a little nervous this wasn't going to work. So thank you so much for all the questions and comments, and we'll see you guys later.